So, another day, another video talking about hated or disliked characters within Miraculous. Last time, as you know, I spent a decent amount of time trying to really come to grips with how much I dislike the character of Kim. Seriously, dude sucks ass. I hate him. I hate him. Does anybody like that dude? Seriously? Maybe Max. Dude's rather cruel at times and also massively arrogant and stupid. One or the other, I can look past it, but when you're arrogant and stupid? No, then it's a problem for me. But enough about Kim. I don't want to raise my blood pressure anymore, so we'll leave him in the past. But regardless, we do have to talk about somebody today, and that character is obviously from the title and thumbnail of the video, Nino. Now, I don't actually hate Nino. I don't even dislike the guy. I've always loved me some Nino. I think he's a lot of fun, a goofball, a loyal friend, a bit foolish at times, but a good person at heart. Plus, Carapace was my favorite of the OG Season 2 hero crew. Love me some Carapace. But honestly, I think there is a whole heap of people out there that think like me, that rather like Nino, or just don't think all that much about him. So I was actually rather surprised to discover there seems to be a certain subsect of fans that actually really dislike him in a number of different ways. There are some that say he's a bad friend, which had me mind-boggled, by the way. And there are others that think he doesn't deserve to be a superhero, which is probably the one you could argue more. But yeah, even then I think I disagree. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there is this relentless hate crusade against him. It's not a hugely popular thing. This is not Marinette that we're talking about after all, but I just did kind of notice there was a bit of discontent surrounding his character, and so I decided to see, is it true? Are these statements accurate? And really the only way to do that is to work our way through some relevant episodes. Okay, so Nino as a hero, it doesn't really come into play until Season 2 at the earliest, and even then it's like 2 episodes max. Things really start to cook in Seasons 3 and beyond, and so in the early days, just start with this question. Is Nino a bad friend? And this is going to include being a friend, but also a boyfriend, a romantic interest. Friend is in the title. And so I guess we got to go through some episodes. And I think it starts relatively well from all things considered. Chronologically, his first appearance is in the Origins 2-parter. And I'll admit he doesn't have much of a role there, but he starts off pretty strong. He meets Adrian, and whilst he first assumes he's going to be the exact same type of person as Chloe, rich and entitled, which is honestly a fair assumption, pretty quickly he realizes he was wrong and becomes determined to become Adrian's friend, so he has somebody less toxic by his side, so a very good start. And then in the bubbler, he tries his best to make Adrian's dad understand that he's not doing right by his boy. That Adrian deserves to be able to have a life, have a party, have friends and fun, and is so angry at the injustice of it all that it makes him vulnerable to being akumatized. I don't know about you, but to me that feels very wholesome. The dude saw that his friend was sad, not being able to have a birthday party, where for the first time ever, he'd have lots of friends to invite. And he tried to make it better for him. Big time Chad energy there. And he does it again in Copycat. At the end of the episode, he notices Adrian's been majorly stressed by losing his phone, only to find it in his bag. And so he decides to take him to the movies after school to clear his head and help him charge up his batteries again. And so here it just shows. He's relatively in tune with the emotional needs of his friend. Not too shabby. Considering they're like 14, I think this is some rather impressive emotional intelligence. I certainly was a dumbass when I was 14. In many ways, I still am a dumbass. In Lady Wi-Fi, Nino's the one who helps distract Chloe when Alia wants to try to prove that she's Ladybug. And he actually succeeds at that. It's Kim that rats her out if I'm not mistaken, so he's a trustworthy friend who's rather competent at following instructions. We see even more emotional intelligence and genuine compassion in Roger Cop when Gabe flakes out on Adrian and doesn't come to Parent Careers Day. And Nino's there to comfort his friend, his obviously distressed and upset friend. And if you watch, he notices it from the second he walks in the door, and he straight up stops filming to focus on him. I guess not to immortalize his friend being sad on video. And we've started pretty strong here, but does it continue to hold? Next up we have Horrificator, where he certainly shows off selfish tendencies, right? You know, gotta take the bad with the good. He adds stuff to the script that Alia had worked hard on without her input or really caring what she thinks whatsoever, despite it not fitting with the characters or the story being told. Which is not exactly the make of a good director or a good friend, but at the same time, kind of feels like how I remember a lot of people being in high school at that age. Is it enough to override the good we've seen so far? I don't think it is, no. But it does add a bit of balance. It adds realistic flaws. He's got a lot of tunnel vision, and this appears a number of times throughout the episodes. And I like it because every character should have some flaws in a well-rounded show and a well-rounded characterization. But yeah, at this stage it's just balance. If it goes too far in the other direction, that's when his character becomes a bit of a douche, but we'll see. In Simon Says, despite being at risk of Simon and his brainwashed army of goons, Nino insists that Ladybug and Cat Noir help him find Adrian because he just can't leave his friend behind to risk getting taken by Simon Says. He even refuses to listen when Cat Noir tries to tell him that Adrian's probably been brainwashed already, so it's too late. The dude is ride or die for his buddy. Later on, he covers for Adrian, filling in at the reception desk after he and Chloe have been pixelated during the events of Pixelator. And it's clear at the time that Nino did not think that they'd been pixelated, that they'd just ditched out. And so the dude held down the fort, keeping things running in case they got in trouble. And I'll be real, back in my day, my friends and I would have noticed that they ditched and thought to ourselves, we're gonna ditch too. So already, he's a better friend than me at this stage of the show. And then probably most iconically, the dude proves himself a pretty top-tier boyfriend in the episode, Anansi? Is that how you say it? It's been a long time. Where he legitimately fights the akumatized villain alone with no powers, only using Cat Noir's staff. And he does this to try to save Alia and Cat Noir, whilst Ladybug goes to get the Turtle Miraculous so she can give it to Nino and turn him into Carapace for the first time. Oh, love me some Carapace. As I said earlier, my favorite of the old school heroes. And yeah, I really can't stress enough how impressive it is that he does this, because at the best of times, Nora, Alia's older sister, would crush his ass in a fight. She is a trained boxer and also just massive in general. She's one of those characters, the Miraculous, that you look at and think, Jesus. She's not as big as Tom, but she's honestly not that far off either. She could take him, I reckon. But yeah, she's already like that as a human in general. But then you add akumatization powers into the mix, give her superpowers, super strength and endurance, a creepier spider helmet and legs, freaky eyes. That's going to be spooky to face down. And this dude does it, even knowing he's going to get his ass beat. He steps up because he needs to save his girlfriend and make sure that she's alright. Chad energy here. You can't deny that. And honestly, he's looking rather strong so far. I'm trying not to be biased because obviously I do like the character and I find him a lot of fun, but I'm really struggling to see what it is that's so unlikable thus far. I think a lot of the characters in the show, at least the protagonists, do have their flaws, but at the same time they come across as mostly likable. I know Marinette gets a lot of hate, but she is rather beloved all the same. A truly controversial character there. You either love her or hate her. And she does have a lot of bright spots and a whole heap of negative qualities too. Mostly the creepy-ass stalker vibes. And then there's Cat Noir. He's far more popular amongst the vocal online fan base, but he also has a lot of drawbacks. The creepy, pushy side to him that we see throughout much of Season 2 and 3 and beyond. And yeah, so it does leave me wondering, where does the discontent come from? Where does it come from? Because from what I've seen in these episodes, he seems fine. Where does this rather minor but prominent enough dislike come from? And so I had to sit back down and really come to the source of the issue. And I didn't want to really have to sit through every single episode of the show to talk about his positive traits and drawbacks. Would be here forever. But I think we've established that he is a balanced character. He can be a bit selfish and pushy and silly, and he often acts before he thinks. But he's loyal, he's brave, and he possesses a lot of emotional intelligence, at least when dealing with Adrian, who he knows has had a pretty rough life despite his wealth and privilege. And so from my investigations, there seem to be two major story beats that occurred relatively recently that have soured folk on Nino and his role in the story. And by recently, I mean Season 4. I don't even know when that came out. 2 years ago? 3? Jesus. And this started the push towards declaring him either a poor friend or a bad hero who doesn't deserve his miraculous. And these episodes seem to be Rocketeer and then the two-part finale of Season 4. So we'll start with Rocketeer because that one has more meat on the bones. The big element that I've seen people pull out as their proof that the dude is too irresponsible to be a hero is the fact that he reveals to Adrian that he was Carapace and Alia was Rena Rouge. Which, yeah, it's not great, but I do think you have to look at the context of the scene and the scenario. It's clear he did this to give Adrian the full set of facts, because he'd gone down the rabbit hole of thinking that Alia is cheating on him with Cat Noir. She'd been distant from him. She'd disappear and have to go off and do Rena missions with Ladybug, but she had to pretend like she wasn't to keep her cover. So he's feeling a bit lonely, bit neglected, bit distant. Then on top of that, the world's shipping her with Cat Noir after that movie, which, side note, release that movie, make it, please. Even as a 20-minute special, I would watch this. It would be so much fun and you know it. But anyway, he spirals a bit from that and he goes a bit stalker, just like Marinette. And he straight up sees them hugging through her window, which is sus. Come on, if this was anyone in real life, you'd think this is sus. Especially if you combine that with his prior knowledge that Cat Noir flirts with her when he gets rejected by Ladybug, and so he vents to his friend about everything. Was it wise to reveal? Maybe not. But let's remember this is a teenage boy going through some shit who needs his friend to understand what's going on. And honestly, I think if you're a superhero, it should be all good to have a single confidant. Why can Marinette have one, but not Nino? And as for outing Alia, at this point in the story, did he not think that she could never be a hero again because she'd been targeted by Shadow Moth? So I don't think he really wronged her there either, because ultimately, unlike Chloe when she outed herself to the world, Nino only told his best friend, whom he knows is a trusted person with impeccable moral fiber, who'd never betray him. He tells him in a secluded area in confidence, And only when Adrian refused to believe him about Cat Noir and Alia. Like, I think giving him some grace on that one in the same way you'd give grace to any of the other protagonists for the genuine mistakes or traumas makes sense, right? I don't know, I just feel like that critique is massively overblown and kind of gets taken out of context. Like, what's going to happen with that info anyway? Because even if it did get out, the heroes already know that Shadow Moth knows who the sidekick heroes are from Miracle Queen. Hell, judging by Miracle Queen, wouldn't Chloe know who all the sidekicks are? So it doesn't really matter. If someone that awful knows, she's probably spread it around on social media, surely. So it's just a big from me, honestly. Also, the fact that he apologizes, accepts he was wrong and that he was being stupid and breaks free of his Akuma at the end of the episode, that's a big plus in my book. Dude was being cringe, but being a teenager is to exist in a permanent state of cringe anyway. So yeah, I'll allow it. And it really doesn't bother me. But then there's one more element that I saw people draw on when discussing Nino's alleged crimes. It's in that two-parter season 4 finale when Adrian's being sent off on his modelling world tour. Marinette is apparently the only one who's able to realise that Adrian sure as hell does not want to go. Nino even saying dumb shit like, Adrian's my best friend, I'd surely know if he was upset, when clearly he's wrong and he looks like an idiot. But I gotta say, this doesn't gel with those moments of emotional intelligence towards Adrian that he'd shown previously in those episodes I cited before. And so that kind of makes me think that this was forced for the sake of the plot more than anything else, which I also try to look past that kind of thing, where something happens and it feels widely and ridiculously out of character or nonsensical. And so I try not to hold that against any character or feel like it's indicative of their portrayal or characterization. I kind of have to look past it, like how you have to look past everybody getting hit with the idiot stick when Lila's around, even though her lies are proven false again and again and again. It's forced for the plot. Or like Adrian being a crying dweeb in the season 5 finale. I won't say that accurately portrays his character, because it doesn't. Conversely, Andre's redemption. Nah, it's forced for the plot, and it's bullshit, and I still hate him. And so, yeah, I would very much argue that Nino, he's not very deep as a character, or very developed, but from what we've seen of him, I think he's a good friend, specifically to Adrian. And he's a good boyfriend, and a deserving hero. Does he have flaws? Yes, but they add to his character, like all flaws add to characters. Within reason, of course. Although I will fully admit there's also a good chance I have some bias here. So with all that being said, not much else to say, and so these have been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of Nino? Are you with me? Maybe you actually hate this guy. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.